A time of music, poetry, jazz, and the soulful blues, the Harlem Renaissance created a world of opportunities and expression for black people. Taking place largely in Harlem, New York around the 1920s, the time period marked a new era for African Americans. An explosion of black identity and culture, the Harlem Renaissance allowed free expression of the African American lifestyle through music, art, literature, and poetry. The poetry brought forth cultural enrichment through the writings of incredibly influential poets, such as Gwendolyn Brooks, Langston Hughes, and Countee Cullen.
The first black author to win the Pulitzer Prize in 1950, Gwendolyn Brooks earned high respect and admiration. Her life never stopped moving, and her family never settled in one place for very long. This exposed Gwendolyn to wavering racial dynamics, which she then incorporated into her literature later in life. Gwendolyn's writings varied from traditional ballads and sonnets to unrestricted free verse, incorporating the swing and exhilaration of the jazz style. Her work, which reflected the time period of the Harlem Renaissance, unveiled the black cloud of racism, a time of lynching and race riots, and a time of heavy, heavy discrimination towards blacks. Giving the feel of having lived through her works, Gwendolyn stated facts and protested the racism of the time. However, her poetry remained simplistic and never uncouth. Apparent in her poetry and several works of literature, her consciousness of societal matters appeared indignant to some critics, but her recognition of these matters prevailed as straightforward and honest. Brooks' poetry had a wide range of themes: black identity and pride, discrimination between races, black leadership, and humanism.
Drone in a drowsy, syncopated tune, rocking back and forth to a mellow croon, I heard a Negro play. Down on Lenox Avenue the other night, by the pale, dull pallor of a one-bulb light, he did a lazy sway. He did a lazy sway to the tune of those weary blues. With his ebony hands on each ivory key, he made that poor piano moan with melody. Oh, blues. Swaying to and fro on his rickety stool, he played that sad, raggy tune like a musical fool. Sweet blues, coming from a black man's soul. Oh, blues. In a deep song voice with a melancholy tone, I heard that Negro sing that old piano moan. Ain't got nobody in all this world, ain't got nobody but myself. I was going to quit my frowning and put my troubles on the shelf. Thump, 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 when he's put on the floor. He played a few chords, then he sang some more. I got the weary blues, I can't be satisfied. Got the weary blues, I can't be satisfied. I ain't happy no more, and I wish that I had died. Far into the night, he crooned that tune. The stars went out, and so did the moon. The singer stopped playing and went to bed, while the weary blues echoed through his head. He slept like a rock, or a man that's dead.
Langston Hughes helped redefine the identity of African Americans during the Harlem Renaissance. Hughes came from a tough background and experienced much of the struggles and prejudice that many other African Americans faced during the early 1900s. Hughes drew inspiration from his life, and his poems told the entire story, whether good or bad. Hughes' poetry gave appreciation to African Americans and celebrated the life and culture. When one talks of Langston Hughes, one must mention his style of poetry. Langston Hughes loved jazz music. He combined a uniquely African American style music with callbacks to black culture to create syncopated tunes and racial poems. The style of poetry drew in both black and whites who at that time became infatuated with the swinging sound of jazz and blues. This concoction of instilling musical beats into poetry forces individuals to unconsciously read the poem with a syncopated rhythm, giving the poem itself the feeling of listening to jazz music. The skillful manipulation of syntax and diction allowed Hughes to create imagery never possible before. Langston Hughes created a style of poetry that uniquely represented his people, captured the emotions and story, then proceeded to give it a grand flair and made them appeal to everyone, no matter the race.
The Black Christ by Count Cullen. God's glory and my country's shame, and how one man who cursed Christ's name may never fully expiate that crime till at the blessed gate of heaven he meet and pardon me, out of his love and charity. How God, who needs no man's applause, for love of my stark soul, no flaws composed, seeing it slip, did stop, down to the mire and pick me up, and in the hollow of his hand, enact again at my command, the world's supremest tragedy, until I die my burthen be. How cavalry in Palestine, extending down to me and mine, was but the first leaf in a line of trees on which man should swing, world without end in suffering, for all men's healing let me sing. An inspirational poet, Count Cullen perfectly embodied the struggle faced by blacks of choosing between their black and American heritage. Cullen's unique upbringing and education caused him to believe white and black society were unified in the arts, and discouraged poetry and art forms which separated the two cultures. Frederick Cullen, a well-known Methodist minister, took Count into his home and enrolled him into DeWitt Clinton High School. He thrived in a predominantly white setting, earning high academic honors, becoming the vice president of his class and the head editor of the school newspaper. Cullen's success in the white-dominated system gave him hope in uniting the races through the arts, which he considered to be pure, and in a sense, colorblind. Black poets and authors such as Langston Hughes, who wrote in a style different to the conventional white author, Cullen considered to be adding to the separation of the races. He disapproved of Hughes' syncopated rhythms and racial poetry, but the divided Cullen himself could not abstain completely from the all-consuming racial rift of America. He wrote about black oppression in pieces such as The Black Christ. He also wrote about the struggle of living as a black man in a white world, but all the while continued using the same conventional writing style.
The Harlem Renaissance served as a time of discovery of black culture. The introduction of African American influences into popular media gave new identity to blacks. Revealing the stories of their lives, poets marched in the forefront of the periods. They expressed their ideas and personal styles to a wide audience. They created literary pieces with racial dynamics and brought forth a new wave of writing into the world. The poets showcased just what African Americans could create and help establish a period that will forever impact the world.